Latios and Tapu Koko, he focuses on those Pokemon to get some early spreads down and get himself in a pretty good position.
It's something that obviously we have not seen so far today, but with a record good enough to get him here, clearly it has been working for him so far. Quite a few supporters in the prize cards right there for Dustin.
Yeah, Dustin, he's going to be down 2 Sycamores, a Max Elixir, which is a one way for him to accelerate energy onto the board. He's going to have to rely on the other 3, and we are underway. Dustin starting off with that ideal Pokemon there, Tapu Koko, and gets to go first.
Catch DCE starts spreading with Flying Flip right out the gate. He should be well on the way to executing his game plan. 10-2-1 for both of these players. I believe you said that puts them right around 30 match points.
10-2-1 is 31.
31
so
match points. Okay.
Yeah, they're trying to win the next 2. 37 should be pretty nice.
That should be pretty much a guaranteed into the top 8, although we are still not exactly positive on what that points threshold will be. But on the other side, for Matthew Padget, we have that Inkay in the active. This is a really straightforward, hyper-fast acceleration Malamar build. You want to get as many Malamar up on the bench as possible, dump a bunch of Psychic Energy into the discard, Psychic Recharge them, ideally onto a Necrozma GX on your bench, and then you're going to be hitting for 190 minimum if you've got those 3 Psychic Energy attached.
Yep, on the other side, we're going to see Dustin doing a very similar strategy, just maybe not as many energy in the discard pile. He only wants to get a few in there to use Oblivion Wing and get some energies accelerated onto the board that way. And wow, look at this. Just every attacker that Dustin has is pretty good against Malamar. He's got Mewtwo, which is a great answer to any Pokemon with extra energies on it. Latios is a great way to knock out Inkay on the second turn. Tapu Koko sets up Yveltal Break, and Yveltal with the energy, he's ready for Oblivion Wing. So many ways that Dustin could attack this game here.
And for Matthew, he is really looking to execute those one-hit knockouts. Necrozma GX can hit for 190, 220, such high damage thresholds depending on the energy you have on it that ideally he's hoping to go up against big GX attackers, take out 3 Pokemon, win the game that way. But Dustin's only hitting with 1 prize attacker, so this is going to take Matthew quite a while to get the necessary prize cards he needs to win the game. And the longer it takes him, that means the more energy he's going to have to accelerate. So if Dustin can maybe counter down some of those Malamar early on, it's going to be really difficult for Matthew to attack.
Yeah, Dustin already showed the Hoopa, which is a great way for him to force Matthew to have to start using non-GX attackers. And if you get those out of the way, then you can find yourself in pretty advantageous prize swaps. Oh, wow. The Latios has the double colorless already, so Inkay is not going to be long for this world.
No, it will not be. And that Tapu Koko, of course, a free retreater. Always nice to have that. Starting in the active, you can just bring it back out and promote whatever you would like. And here it's looking like that Latios is going to be moving on up. And we do have the Instruct or Anguru on the bench as well. Not as powerful as, you know, an Abyssal Hand Octillery, but much more flexible. You can put it in just about anything.
Yep, we see Dustin has that Yveltal Break already, so can already start thinking about who is the most important to put 30 damage on. Inkay's a pretty great spot. Even if it evolves into Malamar, it only has 90 hit points, so you can definitely work your way into knocking that out through some of the spread damage.
No weakness and resistance on the bench, but the active Inkay will be knocked out. So Dustin taking a pretty early prize card here. More importantly, trying to limit the resources that Matthew has available to him.
Yeah, this knockout on the Inkay that turn means that there's only 1 potential Malamar, so Max Elixir is the only way that Matthew's going to be able to get a relevant attack off this turn. And it seems pretty unlikely for him to get anything going too much. He probably is going to end up passing with that Mewtwo in the active spot.
Going to be an Ultra Ball. Dump some of the energy into the discard pile. Very important. Matthew not really going to be going in hard with this Dawn Wings Necrozma this game. Usually you want to get a Float Stone onto your Dawn Wings Necrozma. You can Invasion it into the active spot, Psychic Recharge all of the energy onto whatever Pokemon you want to get the knockout with, and then retreat that Dawn Wings and bring up your attacker. But he needs the ability to accelerate that energy in the first place before he can get that Dawn Wings down and actually start taking those knockouts.
Yeah, and the weakness, dark weakness, is actually pretty terrible for him playing against Eviltal Break. So he may just avoid playing that down for the remainder of the game.
There's the first Eviltal Break. Second Dark Energy has been attached, and Guzmaing up that Malamar. That will be a knockout because of the 30 damage that was spread onto it earlier. This is just such an incredible start for Dustin, and an additional 30 damage on the Inkay on the bench. So if Matthew does have a Malamar to evolve that, if Dustin has another Guzma, he's going to be getting that third knockout.
Yeah, he's just going to keep rinse cycle repeating over here. And the only answer right now that Matthew has is lose all of his energies that he's built up, and that's not a pretty good answer. Definitely going to be looking for another Inkay here. He needs to try to stick multiple Malamar to the board, and he hasn't been able to disrupt anything that Dustin has in his hand. So if Dustin's been holding on to some supporter cards, he'll be able to just keep using those over and over.
Looks like 4 energy and 2 more Guzma in Dustin's hand, so he doesn't actually have any draw supporters right now. But he has all of the Pokemon set up that he needs to be set up.
Yeah.
And he has the ability to snipe down those all-important Malamars. So even though he doesn't have those draw supporters, doesn't necessarily need them right now. But this Necrozma GX is going to get the knockout on the Latios. All 3 energy are discarded. And at this point, Matthew would kind of have his cycle going. He would be able to retreat that Necrozma, Psychic Recharge onto it because of the Dawn Wings with the Float Stone on the bench. Doesn't have the Malamar, however.
We're going to see how greedy Dustin is here. If he does have that Guzma you were talking about, he has the option right now to either take out the Malamar or the Dawn Wings, and he's going after it right now.
Baleful Knight does 120, but with the Dark Weakness on that Dawn Wings Necrozma, that's going to be 240 and 30 damage to everything on the bench that already has damage counters on it.
Also perfectly executed by Dustin to play the Parallel City after the Guzma. You pull up that Dawn Wings Necrozma so that Matthew doesn't have the option to discard it with the Parallel City. Then you make him have to make a decision, and he actually has to decide to keep a Malamar with damage on it on board, even though he knows his opponent's at 2 prize cards left.
Get that Parallel City out of there. Matthew needs Malamar, and he needs them now, but he only has that 1 more copy of Inkay to put down on the bench. This is just going so fast.
I think the only way this works out for him is multiple max elixirs and a really well-timed N. It's going to be hard for him. He also needs a Float Stone if he wants to get an attack off here. He's actually just in a lot of trouble because Dustin also has that Oranguru down, so he can start to draw up some cards again, get his hand back up to 3. So many of the cards that he has are live as soon as he draws them, mostly energies and other item cards that help him out.
I think he picked up a double colorless.
And a Sycamore. Those are good cards.
If you could pick 2 cards. And Matthew's just going to have to pass back, doesn't find the Float Stone for the Mewtwo. Or he attaches to the Necrozma GX?
Yeah, he actually throws the float onto the Necrozma.
Right, so maybe a bit of a different game plan. Trying to stall this one out. Dustin does need to take a single GX knockout to win this game, but if Matthew can force him to take a non-GX knockout, then maybe he's got a little bit more time.
Looks like Dustin's thinking of potentially drawing 1 card first. Nope, he's actually just going to go with the 7 here. Did have potential to maybe top deck something like a Guzma, and then he could just completely destroy this board.
Another Parallel City.
Man, these are tough decisions. Yeah. No, I think that's the right one. He just can't let those prize cards go off the board.
You don't want to get rid of the energy on your Mewtwo. You can't get rid of that Necrozma GX. That's your attacker. But having to ditch the only Malamar he's got on the bench, that's painful.
Yep. Now Dustin's just deciding, should he thin his hand down a little more? He's got cards like Ultra Ball, but Ultra Ball's a pretty good card when you're at 2 prizes. When you get that with the Oranguru, you can actually just use that, burn your hand down, and then draw 3 new cards. So as long as he doesn't take a prize, don't expect him to play anything that he doesn't have to.
Ultra Balling likely for a Malamar would be my guess. Yep. He's at least got 1 energy. If he has a Max Elixir and a Psychic Energy in hand, he can manually attach and Psychic Recharge and Max Elixir to the Necrozma GX on the bench. That's a lot to ask.
Yeah.
He also needs a way to retreat the Mewtwo.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the list now. I don't even see Max Elixir in the deck.
Yeah, it would be hard to play Max Elixir when he doesn't actually have it.
I just assume most lists play it now. He actually went with an approach that has so many extra attackers that he just doesn't have it. And Guzma looks like it's going to set up for the double knockout here.
All right, that is going to be game number 1. Dustin Zimmerman taking it. Very decisive victory there, just controlling the entire time, the pace of the game, the resources that Matthew was able to utilize, keeping those Malamar off of the bench, and Matthew was just locked.
Yeah, I mean, Dustin did everything that he wanted to do. He went first, got an energy onto an Eviltal, had every attacker he needed, didn't even have to use Hoopa, but even though Hoopa could be a pretty good attacker in this matchup, just went with the simple strategy, found that parallel city, and really put so much pressure on those early Inkays and Malamars that Matthew never got to really get any attackers out. He maybe got 2 relevant attacks off that whole game.
All right, well, Matthew's going first this time. If he's able to pull up a Bridget turn 1, he's got 1 in his deck. He can get down a nice couple of Inkay on the bench, hopefully get Malamar going for turn 2, ditch a couple of energy, and he should be able to get his ball rolling much quicker this time with a decent draw at least.
Yeah, really just not sure what attacker he wants to go with in this matchup. It's difficult to say just keep using Mewtwo because it doesn't take too many knockouts. He doesn't want to use these GX attackers because he's losing so many energies every time trading a 2-for-1. I just don't know where he goes from here.
Looks like a mulligan for Matthew, so an extra card over to Dustin's side. Slight bit of an edge there. Two double colorless in the prizes.
Yep, that's going to be pretty unfortunate for Dustin. That's his main way to start putting on aggression, is finding a double colorless energy for Latios.
All right, Matthew does manage to find a basic Pokemon this time around, places those prize cards.
Okay.
Nothing too bad in there.
Yeah, you can work with that.
Does have 2 Tapu Lele GX in the deck, so his chances of finding that turn 1 Bridget maybe a little bit less right now, but nothing detrimental there.
So it looks like we're going to see Matthew starting off, and he does have that Ultra Ball, so we should be seeing a few Inkays in play, but missing one big aspect of it with those Psychic Energies, none in hand to start.
All right, it's likely going to be that Tapu Lele and Wonder Tag for that Bridget. You can see him pulling both of those cards to the front of his deck, but wanting to cycle through and get a good read on what is in his prize cards.
And I think you have to go for the full 3 Inkays on this. It's just too risky when you see your opponent starting Latios. All they need is a Guzma and a DC, and they can get you in that same position where you only have 1 Malamar over and over again. You also gave your opponent some extra cards too, so it's even more likely that Dustin would be able to pull off an easy knockout on an Inkay.
Matthew is going to waver a little bit, though, and pick up a Mewtwo instead of that 3rd Inkay. Dustin, we do know, has 2 double colorless energy in his prize cards, so it will be much more difficult for him to power up that Latios early on. And he's going to Ultra Ball away what looks like 2 Eviltal Break.
Yeah, I think I saw the Super Rod in his hand, so he feels comfortable doing this. It's not too bad for him. The awkward part of his hand is he has 2 Max Elixirs, and he has a really weird way that he could take a knockout. I don't think he should go for it. It's Tapu Lele for Guzma, Guzma up an Inkay, bring up your Lele, attach to it, double Max Elixir to your Latios and retreat. But then you have nothing. So
oh my gosh.
Maybe that's a little too risky.
And it's very dependent on hitting both of those Max Elixirs.
Yeah.
Granted, he's got 10 Darkness Energy in the deck, so it's a good chance, but whew.
Yeah, let's just go for the DC and start doing some damage instead. That sounds a little better.
You hate to throw back those 2 Max Elixirs, though.
Yeah, they just don't do very much for Tapu Lele, so Good eye there, and also waits on the Super Rod. He doesn't need the Evoltal breaks just yet. Doesn't want to draw into those. So I actually like that play from him. He knows that he can get a lot of mileage out of these one-prize attackers that don't require that break stage. So he can just use the Latios and then maybe find the Evoltal break when he needs to clean up some big GX knockouts.
Did he get any basics for the bench? Doesn't look like it.
Didn't even find a double colorless, although it was going to be difficult with 2 in the prizes.
All right, so a rather weak start for Dustin Zimmerman. Matthew, however, if he can get some Malamar on the bench this turn, this could be exactly what he needs to make a comeback in this match.
Yeah, this is exactly what he wants, except no psychic energies yet. He's going to be hoping that off of this Sycamore, he's able to find some way to discard those energies and get the ball rolling. He'd like to really get a early aggressive start on this Latios. Just make sure that it never puts any damage onto the Malamars and Inkas.
He's already used a couple Ultra Ball. He does, of course, run 4 copies of Mysterious Treasure as well, so...
Yeah, there's one of those. So he has access to 2 energies this turn. His 2 energy attacks are Energy Drive. So I don't know if he wants to go with that. Oh, he's got Mewtwo. Okay, so Mewtwo GX, he's got the secondary attack, does 60 damage. And so he can go ahead and go with that. That's a pretty nice way. If he has the Float Stone as well, he'd be able to swap out. And, looks like he has it. Okay. That's pretty solid.
Yeah, running 2 copies of that Mewtwo GX as well as 2 copies of that Mewtwo promo. A lot of cards that we weren't seeing having really any play up until Malamar was released with Forbidden Light. But frankly, I'm quite happy about it. I have 2 of the test tube Mewtwo secret rares that were just collecting dust, so this is good for me.
There we go. Dustin choosing to go aggressive, going to lose a Max Elixir and throw away an N, instead going for 7 cards now. Finds Hoopa. Hoopa seems pretty good against GXs, but this one has a GX attack that goes through that. Yeah, Dustin's just frantically looking through to see what can help him out here. It's probably going to have to go with a non-DCE attacker. He already realizes that he's not going to be finding these double colorless. They're just way too difficult to draw into, being the state of his prize cards. Evoltal is going to be the option.
He did throw away 2 of those Evoltal break earlier on. And those are the only 2 that he is running, so unless he finds the Super Rod, he's not going to have those back in his hand for quite a while.
Yep. Dustin's just going to try to force the GX attack out of Matthew over here. Matthew doesn't have any other energies in the discard pile. Has no Dawn Wings to float in and float out. So it's probably going to be Matthew's best option here.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Psystrike GX from Mewtwo GX does 200 damage and is not affected by any effects on the opponent's active Pokemon. So even though Hoopa normally cannot take damage from EX and GX Pokemon, Psystrike gets right past that. And, you know, there really aren't, I would say, any other GX attacks that Matthew would want to use. You know, there are no...
Blackray's not going to do too much.
No GX and EX Pokemon to deal 100 damage to. And
honestly, his best GX attack is either this or Tapu Cure.
Yeah. Well, that Dawn Wings Necrozma is pretty good.
That can come in handy sometimes.
But most of the attacks that Matthew's going to be using are you know, going to deal enough damage to get knockouts, regardless of whether they're GX attacks or not.
Yeah.
So getting past that Hoopa, well worth Psystrike GX.
Well, Dustin does find double colorless just at an awkward point. He doesn't have anyone that he wants to attach it to now. If he had the Mewtwo, he would have been able to set up a potential knockout using a choice band.
Very, very different situation from that last game. Dustin really feeling the hurt from prizing 2 of those double colorless, but it looks like he finally did pick one up.
Yeah, he might have to energy drive. It's the only way to get some relevant damage onto the board.
Well, it would be what, 200 with the double colorless, and that's with the psychic weakness from Mewtwo, enough to take the knockout.
Yep. He also has the option to just promote Hoopa and hang out for a little bit. He could attach to the Hoopa as well if he wanted to. He doesn't have to worry about a GX attack happening. He's already seen the marker flipped over. And it's pretty difficult for Matthew to find a way to attack with the other Mewtwo. There's no other psychic energies in the discard that I'm aware of.
Yeah, even with 2 Malamar on the bench, there really haven't been many energy discarded from Matthew this game because he's gone in on the Mewtwo GX. Looks like he's got 2 in hand and a Sycamore, which, well, that'll put energy in your discard.
Yeah, it's surprising to see him not use the Mysterious Treasure before that. He could just check his deck, see what he's working with, and maybe throw away some Pokemon that he wasn't going to be able to use in the game.
That's a good point. Thin the deck a little bit. This isn't going to be a fatigue scenario.
Well, here comes Mewtwo. It does something. Just not enough.
Well, at least he does have those non-EX and GX attackers to get through Hoopa the hard way. No Acerolas in the deck for Dustin. So no way to heal up that damage. We'll just have to retreat the Hoopa.
Yeah, this is a difficult spot for Dustin. He's going to need to find Floatstone, Mewtwo DCE if he wanted to remove this Mewtwo off of the board. He's got a Rangaroo, so that he could draw a few more cards if he's able to play out a lot in his hands, but it just has to work out the right way, and it just hasn't off of the last few supporters he's drawn. Looks to be the same story here.
All right, attach Dark to the Eviltal on the bench. And that DCE still in hand, but he's just going to pass back again, try and buy some time.
Yep, just really doesn't have any way to get out of this. He's going to let the Mewtwo hit him. And if Dustin doesn't have an answer in the next few turns, I would really suggest that he scoops and just plays a nice game 3. He knows that if he plays this matchup the way he wants to, he definitely can win the game. It's just he needs a little bit of time so that he can execute it. Maybe 12 minutes for a nice game for him. So as long as he doesn't play this game out way too long in a disadvantaged position, then he should be okay.
Yeah, you of course have to be cognizant of the clock. But that first game did go by rather quickly, so I'm sure he's still feeling pretty secure that he can play this one out for a little bit longer, maybe go for some of those low percentage chances that he's able to turn this one around. But if it's going south, he'll scoop and go to game 3. It does look like with a powered up Necrozma GX on the bench, the Mewtwo in the active, and 2 Malamar that have yet to be touched in any way, it looks like this one's going in favor of Matthew.
Yeah, I mean, this end is probably going to be the key. If this one is finally able to lock out Matthew, he has a full bench. He already's played Tapu Lele. He's played a few supporters. So if this actually ends in a drought and he doesn't find cards like Guzma to knock out that Tapu Lele for a potential winner in the following turns, then I don't see Dustin continuing to play the game out. Well, there's the Mewtwo and the DCE. He has Max Elixir, so he can start to work on the other Eviltal if he wants to. Get a second energy there. He did shuffle in the break as well, so he could get that ready to go. Looks like he already attached to the Eviltal, so good spot by Matthew.
Important to, I don't want to say police your opponent, but make sure that the rules are being followed.
Yeah, monitor.
Yeah, keep an eye on. It's a nice way to put it.
So off the Max Elixir, Dustin is able to find another energy and get that onto an Eviltal.
He's finally starting to execute some of his game plan, to get something going. But the question is it just too late? Does Matthew have too many powered up Pokemon? He's had so much time to Psychic Recharge onto that Necrozma GX and the Mewtwo on the bench that it just seems really unlikely that even if Dustin finds himself in a situation of parity, Matthew is so far ahead on prize cards that he's just going to be able to take this one.
Well, this hand is awful. This is the scenario where Dustin stays in the game. There's not much going on here over on Matthew's side. And really, we're just a few turns away. If Dustin is able to find a parallel city, he could really make this awkward for Matthew.
That's a good point. Limit the bench size. If Dustin can force Matthew to go down to just one Malamar, now things get a little bit better for him.
Yep, he has the energy if he wants to work on the Mewtwo or the Eviltal Break. Decides to go with the Mewtwo here. He has Ultra Ball as well, so if he wants to go for Tapu Lele for a card like Guzma, he can do that. But it looks like he wants to go with the Eviltal Break, give himself a little extra hit points, and then play a Sycamore here and try to find that parallel city. Oh, he's actually played his hand out so the Oranguru can help him out. That's a...
Oh, smart.
Pretty risky, though. I guess he just really wants to find a different supporter.
Yeah, that's fair. He does have a pretty dense set of supporters, 4 End, 4 Sycamore, 3 Cynthia, so a lot of draw options.
Yeah. And he found the one he was looking for. He found Guzma, so he's able to remove 3 more energies off the board.
There you go. And he does have a Cynthia in hand as well for next turn, so smooth sailing now that Dustin's managed to get past the rocky early start. Matthew still needs to take 2 prizes. Dustin's got that Tapu Lele GX on the bench, however.
I think we're just a Psychic Energy away. Yeah, that might actually be it. Because he can Ultra Ball for Tapu Lele attached to the other Necrozma and Prismatic the Lele.
Yeah.
So let's see if he's got the Tapu Lele here. Yeah, he eyes it up immediately, found the Guzma.
Wonder Tag for the Guzma. Bring up the only GX Pokemon in the deck for Dustin Zimmerman.
And yeah, Dustin's going to go ahead and scoop it up here. And looks like we're moving on to game 3.
All right, 1-1. Game number 3. Potentially a top 8 qualification on the line here for these guys. Winner goes to an 11-2-1 match record, ends up at 34 match points after this round, but I believe they're going to need at least one more draw at that point. 35 potentially the sweet spot, but still a bit of a question mark there.
Yeah, 35, it could get dangerous. It really just depends on tie percentages. When you have 1,500 players, you need a lot of points to make it to the last 8 spots. So both these players were definitely eyeing up wins and then trying to at least tie or win in the following round. A little hope for both players, though. Matthew was able to see that if he draws into the right cards, gets some Psychic Energy in the discard pile, he definitely has a way to win against this deck. Dustin saw game 1 how easy it is for him to win this game if he draws into the right stuff, and he almost started to make a comeback in game 2 after pretty terrible draws and some pretty lame prizes for him.
Well, hopefully the prizes work a little bit more in his favor this time around. Only 4 DCE in the deck, and he did prize 2 of them in the previous game.
Looks like nothing too terrible prize there. And
4 darkness energy out of 10 in the deck. That's a bit rough.
Yeah, that's not good.
You do need 3 darkness energy on an Eviltal Break to attack.
He might not be able to get there with Eviltal Break.
Especially when you're relying very heavily on the 4 Max Elixir in your deck. That's a little sketchy.
That's true.
But he does have all 4 DCE this time around, so perhaps an early Latios, sniping off some of those Inkay on the bench from Matthew, could get there. And you know, very importantly, Dustin is going first this game.
No, that's right. He also started his best Pokemon, that Tapu Koko. It's got free retreat. It also is very good against decks that like to fill their bench early. You just use that flying flip, get a bunch of damage onto the board, and that just sets up for all of his Pokemon to get some pretty sweet knockouts. Latios spreading 30 is able to do a pretty good amount of work, along with Eviltal Break to clean up at the end.
Does get that powered up Latios on the bench. Cynthia for a fresh 6.
Well, he found a few cards he could play, just doesn't really want to play them yet. Double Max Elixir, and the only Pokemon he could give those to are the Oranguru, because Latios doesn't really want those Dark Energies.
All right, an early Ultra Ball from Matthew, and with that Cynthia in hand, this is probably going to be a Wonder Tag for Bridget and a couple Inkay on the bench.
Yeah, it seems to be what he's looking for. Just needs to stick Inkay so that he can find Malamars later in the game. Also, finding that Psychic Energy for the discard pile is going to be pretty great for him. It means that he has a potential option of getting some attacks off in the second turn. Okay, so wants to play Cynthia this turn. Going to forego that Lele and just get that second Inkay. Yeah, it's interesting. He could just play out the Lele and use Bridget, but maybe he's got a little information that we don't have. Maybe he's just unhappy with the rest of his hand. He didn't have another Psychic Energy to attach if he Ultra Balled away the Psychic Energy that was in his hand initially. Yeah, that's true. This allows him to get a little more aggressive. Also holding the Floatstone and the Mysterious Treasure for the following turn, so he definitely could get a Super Psybolt off with this Mewtwo in the coming turns against Latios, which is pretty much what he's trying to do. He just needs to have an answer to Latios once it starts working on the Inkays. Still no target for Dustin to really want to Max Elixir to. He has another DCE in hand, but no Yveltal as of yet. Going to attach to Oranguru. It does have Psychic, which is a pretty powerful attack. Yeah, it's managed to do a little bit of work for some players in the past, but looks like he's just gonna play a few cards out. Doesn't want to use those Max Elixirs just yet. Wants to find Yveltals for those. It's unfortunate that he hasn't been able to see that yet. And no Guzma, so this means that if Latios attacks, it's not taking a knockout here. All right, finally finding that Yveltal. But now the Max Elixir is no longer in hand. Also found a Dark Energy, one of the few. It's also sitting there for him. Wants to see the discard pile, just checking on the amount of Psychic Energies mainly. And now he's got to make the decision of if you pass or Latios. He's just going to pass the turn here. It's not worth attacking into that Mewtwo. It also has that pressure ability, so the damage would be reduced. And only 30 on the Inkay. Doesn't seem worth it. He could just get attach, Floatstone, Malamar, and Mewtwo would knock out his Latios. Field Blower away the Choice Band. And there the Necrozma enters the board. 2 Malamar and a couple of energy in the discard means this will be a powered up Necrozma GX pretty quickly. Yeah, this is a pretty solid second turn, if you ask me. I'd definitely prefer to be a Malamar player in this spot. He's got pretty much everything he wants to work with, just trying to find Floatstone, maybe another way to get an energy into the discard pile for himself, and he's in a pretty favorable spot. Important to note, this is not always how Malamar turn 2s look. Yeah. The deck can be a bit inconsistent. This is an ideal scenario. This definitely doesn't work for me like that. Yeah, but when you get it, it's pretty sweet. All right, finding that Mewtwo GX, of course. Its GX attack can get through that Hoopa we saw last game, so wanting to have that just in case. We are in the spot where Parallel City would be pretty detrimental as well, so look for that card as a signature move on Dustin's side. 2 energies for the Mewtwo. Is there a Floatstone? I don't think we see that yet, so just gonna have to pass the turn. Dustin does have that Guzma in his hand. He can start to work on some Pokemon if he wants to. Just has to pick which one he wants to attack into. Could start to work on Malamar. It forces Matthew to have a card like Guzma or Floatstone to get out of the active spot.
We saw he didn't attach Float Stone to the Mewtwo last turn, so probably doesn't have it.
Also could land some pretty big damage. He has a Choice Band in his hand.
Okay, then that's going to be 120 onto the active Necrozma. And 30 onto a benched Malamar. If he's able to pull that Malamar up, then he's going to have the knockout on that with the weakness.
Yep, pretty solid turn all around for Dustin there.
Not sure which way this one's going to go, actually.
Yeah, this is tough because Matthew's pretty much done everything that he needs to do. It's pretty much just dependent on if Dustin draws into the right cards in the following few turns. He has all of his attackers ready. He's not at any point going to lose both Malamars with this current setup. That's one way that this matchup can start to flip around.
Getting the Super Psybolt knockout onto that Latios, though, that's a pretty big deal. Puts Matthew at that slightly awkward 5 prize card spot, but less awkward knowing there's only a single copy of Tapu Lele GX as a 2 prize Pokemon in the deck for Dustin, so he was going to have to knock out quite a few Pokemon anyway.
Yeah, Psychic right now is hitting for 120, but then reduced by pressure, so only 100 damage. So Dustin instead is going to pull that energy back and try to find a different attacker. Mewtwo DCE would be able to handle this Mewtwo. We'll just see what he ends up going with here. Really just depends on the Cynthia draw. He's been pretty dependent on his draws. Hasn't been able to stick too much to the board over the last 2 games.
Nah, he's always been chasing something. Hasn't had just that perfect setup yet. He does find the Psychic and the Ultra Ball. That's going to be able to fetch that Evolution's Mewtwo and the DCE, not the Psychic, excuse me, to attach the Mewtwo. We'll get him the knockout.
Yeah. Also, love the ordering here. He's going to use the Ultra Ball and grab a Pokemon first, then use his Max Elixir, thins out by a card, so doesn't have to worry about drawing into that Mewtwo off of the Max Elixir. Could potentially be that energy, and we know he doesn't have too many. He's counting right now and saying, oh boy, I actually don't have very good odds of hitting this Max Elixir, but probably going to have to try.
It's not a great surprise, but he'll work with it. Still a decent shot here.
Oh, there it goes. So that worked out pretty well for him. Not sure if he's used his Oranguru ability yet, but could bring his hand back up.
All right, he's going to instruct for 2. Finds another Max Elixir.
And another Mewtwo.
Can he hit 2 in a row? Oh, he does.
It's like he never even prized 4. No big deal. Yeah, I would definitely bench this other Mewtwo. It's a very nice threat to stick onto the board. And, he's going to take the knockout here.
All right, promote the Necrozma GX with the Float Stone and then figure out exactly what the game plan is here.
Looks like the answer is go find a Psychic Energy. He's going to throw away all of those GX Pokemon, just doesn't want to work with them. Knows his best answer here is probably to just use his little Mewtwo and attack right back in. Make Dustin have to have that double colorless energy.
Tossing a Guzma as well. Could have isolated that Eviltal, but doesn't have the necessary Psychic energy to actually knock it out. All right, able to get the full value from Psychic Recharge this turn. And we're going to see the Super Psybolt knockout onto the Evolution's Mewtwo.
All right, so Tapu Koko, the ideal Pokemon to bring up. That free retreat, of course, is going to give him all the options that he needs. Dustin's going to try to find a little bit of information. Sees 1 Psychic Energy in the discard pile. So maybe that might have him attack somewhere else if he isn't able to score the knockout here. Because he doesn't have to worry about any other attackers coming into play. If it involves retreating and then Guzmaing, it just gets really awkward for Matthew to get value out of Recharge. And So with Oranguru going up to use Psychic, he could get the Mewtwo to 100. That sets up for some potential knockouts with Yveltal break if the Mewtwo were to be in the on the bench. Don't have to worry about that pressure ability then. No, might just be playing a longer game here.
Yeah, looks like it.
Unfortunate, though, is that Oranguru is the only real way he has to draw cards. So if he starts using it as his attacker, he might be in a little bit of trouble.
Only a couple Darkness Energy left in the deck, and Dustin does miss on that Max Elixir.
Yeah, that means that attacking with Yveltal just gets a little more awkward for him.
Looks like he's got 2 in hand.
So yeah, he's going to go with this Oranguru.
Softening up the Mewtwo, setting up for a knockout on the next turn. And everything that Matthew has is actually pretty within reach now of the damage that Dustin can do.
Yeah.
It's going to take some manipulating of the board state, but he's done a lot of work so far.
Matthew has that 1 Psychic Energy, has Ultra Ball, so he could go for Tapu Lele if he needs to find a supporter to take knockouts here. I think that's what he has to end up doing. This retreat and then potentially using a Guzma could score him a knockout. Just maybe wants to go after that Yveltal. Maybe he wants to take out that Mewtwo because he's had a lot of trouble with Mewtwo's.
Certainly keeping track of the double colorless energy that have been used this game.
And what a relief for Dustin this is if his Oranguru is not going to get knocked out, because I think he needs it if he's going to stay alive in this game. He needs to draw more cards to get him out of his hands because it's not going anywhere right now.
Okay, it is going to be the Yveltal with the energy on it that Matthew will target down. Still keeping plenty of energy in his discard to use Psychic Recharge every turn, but now this Necrozma GX is pretty fragile. Definitely, there's an opening for Dustin to take some prizes here.
Unfortunately, he drew into another Pokemon, so the most cards he can draw is 1. He'd have to play down all those Pokemon as well.
Does have the Hoopa in hand, but with Matthew still having his GX attack available and that Mewtwo GX on board, that Hoopa is not quite so scary.
Oh, he finds a Dark Energy. Well, Psychic attacking into the Necrozma is actually not going to work because it has an ability that stops its attacks from colorless Pokemon.
Lights and oh my goodness, you forget about that, don't you?
Yeah, he just attacked in thinking that he'd get the knockout, but actually there were no potential knockouts for him. Oh, and that's huge.
That's a big deal. Now, if Matthew just has 1 Psychic Energy, he can knock out this Oranguru.
Yeah, the only relevant attackers that I've seen this come into play with have been Drampa attacking into this card, trying to score a big knockout. But yeah, Oranguru is a card you got to think about too, and Dustin just missed it.
Yeah, and usually Drampa was paired with Garb, and Garb would shut down Light's End. So that's the first time I've actually seen that be really detrimental. Dustin just promoted his Oranguru, did nothing with it, and now lost his consistent draw resource.
Well, he did find a Sycamore, so he's still in this game. He's going to attach to the Yveltal. This is just going to be a little slow, though. He's just only doing 30 damage. It's towards his energy acceleration as well. So much damage on that side of Matthew's board, but he just can't clean up. And this Parallel City could just remove the prize cards for him. Yeah, Matthew says, thanks. I can get rid of this thing. It's got like 300 damage.
Fine by him.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand where Dustin's coming from, though. If you don't have to worry about those attackers for the rest of the game, that helps. But you lose so many attacks.
You've still got a Tapu Lele with 3 energy on it and a Mewtwo GX that will be ready to attack with just a single Psychic Energy from hand every turn going forward.
Yep. Field Blower would be a very nice card for Matthew here if you're able to remove that Parallel City. Give himself a little more bench space. He does have that Rescue Stretcher in hand, so if he wanted to pull some of these Pokemon back into his deck, he has that option too. Guzma is going to be able to target down a Pokemon. He wants to choose that Yveltal with 2 energies. Now we're going to decide if he wants to load up the energies onto a Mewtwo, or, I mean, he could go for a big energy drive. He's counting it up.
Oh,
That's a big attack.
What, could he put
5,
3
that's
energy
enough.
onto the Lele this turn with Do Psychic Recharge and the energy from hand? But yeah, do the exact math, finds out it's 1 more than he needed, so he gets to attach the Mewtwo GX on the bench as well. And now Matthew down to just 1 prize card remaining. Dustin, his back's against the wall here. Is there anything that he can do to get him out of this horrible situation?
Well, right now the only attacker that could potentially knock out this Lele and not have him knocked out, he'd have to have a field blower to take away that float stone on the Malamar and maybe attack with a Tapu Lele of his own. He could do energy drive with a DCE for 140 damage, and if he paired that with an N, he'd be in a pretty reasonable spot. Just that Mewtwo, I could see a world where Matthew maybe attaches those energies to Mewtwo and passes, and then Dustin takes advantage of that with his Mewtwo, but it's a lot to ask for. I think it all starts with this Tapu Lele, though.
He just needs... Oh, gosh, I don't even know what he needs.
Yeah.
He needs so much.
So if he uses the... Okay, he's going to use the Guzma and go after the Mewtwo.
All right.
The Mewtwo can't take energies if it is in the active spot, so that's a strategy.
It is...
Yveltal Break has 150 hit points.
The Mewtwo only needs 1 energy to attack. It just gains more damage the more energy it has attached to it.
So it looks like he's going to use Oblivion Wing here.
30 damage and an energy from the discard.
Maybe that's all of Matthew's energies right now in play.
Yeah, because he would need 3 to use Baleful Knight, but I believe with Oblivion Wing you have to attach to the bench.
Oh, he has 1 energy there. Yeah, he's got to use that to the bench. So no blower yet. I think that's the key right now to him winning the game. You need to get rid of that Parallel City so that he can find the Guzma for the win. I like that he's now thinning out. He's going to get that Inkay into his hand so that he can potentially throw it away with the Sycamore. Throw it away right now if he wants.
Yep, just rinse and repeat. Get closer to the game-winning cards in the deck.
Yeah, he's just going to use that Sycamore and try to push. One Psychic, 2 Psychic energies.
And a Float Stone, I believe.
So he's counting up right now. He's got 5 on board, 6 if he attacks 120. He just attaches here, uses Recharge, and then Float Stone's out. That's going to be the game.
What a comeback from Matthew Padget, going down to a 0-1 deficit, but manages to get 2 consecutive wins within time. That was a pretty cool series.
Yeah, I mean, we got to see a little bit of everything. Dustin's deck